Let's talk about my favourite legion of space marines, the Blood Angels. An army comprised entirely of space vampires, originally led by a literal angel, and now led by the oldest living marine in the setting. That's just scratching the surface of what the Blood Angels are. Fair warning, this video is going to be incredibly biased. I've made no secret of my love for the Sons of Sanguinius on this channel so far, and that's definitely not going to change today. So let's get into it, shall we? Before their reunion with their gene father, the 9th Legion was far removed from the nobility and artistry that would later define them. Among the most savage of the legions that fought in the Unification Wars, the 9th often served as vanguards and raiders, specialising in murderous close combat against the most twisted and dangerous of foes, often fighting alone and out of the wider spotlight of the conflict. They also had the small and completely unremarkable habit of consuming enemy corpses. We've all been there. Despite their gene seed giving them the appearance of angelic hotties, the warriors of the 9th Legion were little more than psychotic slaughterers, faces covered in blood and gore, stalking the battlefield after their victories to eat the flesh of the dead and drink their blood. Among Imperial forces, they became known as the Eaters of the Dead. Their recruiting of mutants and the dregs of humanity, those the other legions wouldn't even consider, led to the cult of the Reborn springing up to worship them. Formed from desperate wanderers, exiles and mutants who had lived in the most inhospitable parts of Terra, the cult of the Reborn followed the 9th Legion in hopes of being chosen as aspirants. They were a religious mob herded by priests known as the Red Brothers, who decided which among the cult would be presented to the Legion's apothecaries. Despite their worship of, and usefulness to, the Legion, when Big E implemented the Imperial Truth, basically atheism good, religion and aliens bad, the 9th destroyed the group with cold indifference. After the unification of Terra was complete, the Legion was deployed en masse to Neptune on what was essentially a suicide mission. Despite being almost completely wiped out in the conflict, by the time anyone else showed up, the 9th had replenished their numbers by recruiting from Neptune's barely human population. Similarly destructive battles followed, with the Legion thrown into hellish war zones to be slaughtered, only to emerge with the same or greater numbers of combat-ready Astartes. This freaked out Malcador a little bit, which was no easy feat, and led to him naming them the Revenant Legion. Often deployed alongside other legions less favoured by the Lords of the Imperium, such as the Warhounds and Iron Warriors, the Revenant Legion maintained only line infantry and jump pack troops, less out of choice, and more due to the Imperium's reluctance to risk giving the Suicide Squad more advanced weaponry. In a move that definitely didn't help their PR, the Legion engaged in various blood cults and rituals, being censured for numerous misdeeds, such as eating prisoners of war in front of the enemy to demoralise them. An undeniably effective tactic, if not exactly morally good. One particularly fun ritual was eating the brains of fallen heroes of the Legion and taking their names. The Legion Master died many times across the bloody battles that the Legion faced, but officially survived until Sanguinius was found. Speaking of their gene father, while all this was going down, he remained on the planet Baal, where he had crash-landed after the scattering of the infant Primarchs. Perhaps due to Baal's high radiation, or perhaps due to chaos corruption during his travels, Sanguinius sprouted a pair of angelic wings. If anything was going to repair the public image of his legion, it was their father looking like this. Honestly, it was incredibly lucky. All I'm saying is that if it had been Mortarion coming home to a legion of Vlad the Impaler cosplayers, they probably would have gone the way of the Thunder Warriors. Found by a tribe of humans known as the People of the Pure Blood, or just the Blood for short, Sanguinius soon developed strong psychic gifts, most notably the ability to divine the future. Using these gifts, along with his physical strength as a 9-foot-tall bodybuilder with wings, Sanguinius led the Blood to victory against the mutant hordes of Baal and became worshipped by his people as a god. When the Emperor arrived on Baal, he did the usual routine of disguising himself and entering Sanguinius' court. However, like Kurz, Sanguinius had foreseen the arrival of his father and immediately recognised him, pledging his service without challenging him, one of the few Primarchs to do so. His only demand was that the Emperor leave the people of Baal in peace, rather than transforming the planet into the Imperium's billion 20th industrial hellhole. Rather than rejoining his gene sons immediately, Sanguinius spent the first 3 years after his discovery with the Lunar Wolves, learning from his brother Horus. Upon first meeting his legion, he insisted on learning the name of each and every one of his warriors, before swearing an oath to stand by them whatever may come, stating that he hoped he could live up to leading them. Sanguinius was remarkably humble, and a very cool guy by the standards of the Primarchs, and so his sons immediately pledged their loyalty to him. After fighting alongside his sons, Sanguinius was exposed firsthand to their bloodlust and hunger, and knew that if they continued down that path, they would soon become monsters. In an effort to reforge his legion into a force for nobility, he had each company fight alongside Horus's Lunar Wolves for the next decade, both to gain experience fighting alongside their peers, and to learn from their cousins' nobility and honour. Under the leadership of their Primarch, the Blood Angels, as they were now known, replaced their desire for bloodshed with a sense of pride and honour, and found a new place alongside the top legions of the Great Crusade, such as the Lunar Wolves and Imperial Fists. They became noble warriors and paragons of virtue across the Imperium, forming a friendly rivalry with the World Eaters due to their shared status as elite shock troops. In addition to instilling a sense of morality and pride in his legion, Sanguinius also introduced them to the concept of hobbies, encouraging his sons to pursue interests in art and poetry. Many Marines personally decorated both their own war gear and the vessels they sailed through the void, often taking on monstrous foes in search of new arts and crafts supplies. Despite this newfound nobility, restraint and artistry generally keeping their bloodlust in check, the Legion continued to battle the Red Thirst, a genetic defect passed down from gene father to sons. Inside every Blood Angel was a lust for battle and for blood, and this could sometimes boil over until a warrior succumbed to a rage that stripped away his reason, his humanity, and left him only able to kill and kill, satiating himself with more and more blood. Fortunately, only a handful of Marines would fall so deeply to the thirst over the course of the Legion's history, with most perishing in battle before their brothers noticed their growing insanity. Those who did become noticeable would usually be put to death by the Sanguinary Guard commander Ascalon, or by Sanguinius himself, at least at the start. During the latter days of the Great Crusade, outbreaks became more and more common, and Sanguinius feared that eventually all of his noble sons would fall to the affliction. He strove to keep the secret of his gene flaw hidden from the Emperor and his fellow Primarchs, with the only one of his brothers who learned of it being Horus. Sanguinius feared that if his father discovered the Red Thirst, he would erase the Blood Angels like he did the 2nd and 11th Legions. Although, honestly, I'm not sure I buy that. The Legion operated fine before Sangi arrived, and presumably still had the Red Thirst since they literally ate corpses. They even got a cute little nickname out of it, so I feel like Big E would have at least heard his son out before executing every member of his legion. At the outbreak of the heresy, Horus, knowing that Sanguinius would never turn against the Emperor willingly, sent his brother on campaign in the Signus cluster in an effort to corrupt him to the service of the Chaos Gods. A system of demon worlds, the Signus cluster was under the rule of a greater demon of Slanesh, known as Carice the Perverse, who crippled the Blood Angels' fleet by killing its navigators and astropaths upon arrival, before appearing to Sanguinius and challenging him to take the system back. Despite never having fought demons before, and having incredibly limited knowledge of them, due to the Emperor's foolproof plan of pretending the warp wasn't real, the Blood Angels rose to the challenge admirably, engaging the demon host on the world of Signus Prime. Outside of Carice's lair, Sanguinius first met, and was knocked out by, the single greatest enemy of the Blood Angels, Kabanda, the Bloodthirster of Khorne. With their Primarch unconscious, the Blood Angels reverted back to the berserker fury that had defined them so long ago, destroying the demon horde and cleansing Signus Prime, but unleashing the first shadow of the so-called Black Rage that would later affect the Legion. Sanguinius was awakened by his librarians before the end of the battle, returning for a rematch with Kabanda and delivering some of the hardest lines in the entire Heresy series, such as "Only angels may fly," shortly before tearing off one of Kabanda's wings with his bare hands, and "If you truly do hail from the realm that men once called Hell, when you you return there, tell your kindred it was Sanguinius who threw you back. Following the Signus campaign, what remained of the Blood Angels Legion attempted to return to Terra on the orders of Rogal Dawn, but due to the ruin storm summoned by the Word Bearers during the Battle of Calth, they never made it that far. Instead, they followed the beacon of the Pharaoh's device to the realm of Ultramar, joining forces with Rabute Gilliman and the Ultramarines, later to be joined by the Lion. With the legions and their primarchs cut off from the wider Imperium by the ruin storm, and uncertain of the Emperor's fate, they decided to declare the foundation of Imperium Secundus, in order to continue the fight against the traitors and secure Big E's legacy. With Sanguinius declared the new Emperor, and the Lion his Lord Protector, the three Primarchs battled Conrad Kurz, who had escaped captivity on the Lion's flagship. Kurz would have killed both Gilliman and the Lion without copious amounts of plot armour by virtue of the Pharaoh's device, but they eventually succeeded in capturing the Night Haunter, placing him in stasis, and launching him into space to think about what he had done. Following a vision that revealed the Emperor was still alive, and a lot of petty bickering between Gilliman and the Lion, Sanguinius abolished Imperium Secundus. The three Primarchs led their legions in an attempt to breach the ruin storm and return to Terra. They eventually reached Davin, the nexus of the storm, and destroyed the planet, revealing a path to Terra in the process. Only the Blood Angels took it, with the other two Primarchs leading their legions in diversionary attacks against the traitor forces. Sanguinius and his legion joined the Imperial Fists and White Scars in the defence of the Imperial Palace on Terra, repulsing the traitor forces from the walls 3 times before falling back in the face of the legions of Chaos Titans. Sanguinius once again faced Kabanda at the Eternity Gate, and once again banished the demon, hurling its carcass at the Chaos Horde and closing the gate. When the Emperor led the assault on Horus's flagship at the climax of the siege, Sanguinius joined him, due to his vision of his own death at the hands of Horus. His reasoning was that if the vision was true, and he allowed the Emperor to face Horus before him, then the Emperor must be defeated. However, if he faced Horus first, then the Emperor still stood a chance. Unfortunately for Sangi, his vision was true, and Horus killed the shit out of him. Seriously, Sanguinius is about as dead as it's possible to be in 40k. The only person more completely and utterly no takebacksies dead is Horus, who personally got his soul obliterated by the Emperor. Sanguinius is so dead that the after effects of Horus's assault haunt his legion to this day in the form of the Black Rage. From the day of Sanguinius's death through to the current setting, every so often a Blood Angel's warrior will fall to a berserker rage in battle, gaining incredible strength and speed even relative to normal Astartes, though losing his grip on reality in the process. The warrior believes himself to be Sanguinius aboard the Vengeful Spirit, with every living being appearing to him as Horus at the height of his corruption. In most cases, Mephiston and possibly Dante being the only exceptions as far as I'm aware, this transformation is permanent, and the original warrior's personality is completely lost to the rage. Those who fall to it are kept separate from the rest of the chapter, given black armour and relic weapons from the Legion's armories, before being unleashed upon the foe to die in battle and end their suffering. On the opposite side of the savagery and nobility spectrum that the Blood Angels embody are the Sanguinary Guard, a force of angelic golden warriors comprising the utmost elite veterans of the chapter, who embody the values of their Primarch in a way no other Marines can. Equipped with wrist-mounted bolt guns, plasma pistols and inferno pistols, wielding in carmine spears, swords, axes and glaives, and clad in golden artificer armour with winged jump packs, the Sanguinary Guard are some of the coolest models in the entire Space Marine range. I know a lot of people don't like the new models, and I can see why, the old ones definitely had more personality, but even the new ones look great on the tabletop as a centrepiece of the army, especially alongside the chapter master they are sworn to protect, Dante. The oldest living Space Marine, barring dreadnoughts and warp shenanigans, Dante has served his chapter for over a millennium and a half, and is currently the Lord Commander of the Imperium Nihilus, befitting his status as the most respected chapter master in the setting. Embodying the nobility of Sanguinius as much as he can, Dante is one of the most honourable individuals in the galaxy during the 42nd millennium, at least as far as a genocidal monster driven by a relentless creed and a genetic imperative to drink blood can be honourable. He's also borderline suicidal and absolutely exhausted by 1500 years of service to a dying underlying Imperium. Seriously, it's comical just how much Dante wants to be done with everything. He almost dies to the Swarm Lord while defending Baal, and literally begs the ghost of Sanguinius not to revive him. Read Devastation of Baal, it's a great book. So that was the Blood Angels, the best legion of Space Marines. Despite the death of their Gene Father, and the dual curses of the Red Thirst and Black Rage, they still fight for the Imperium and for all of mankind. I love them to bits, and I hope I've managed to make you share that opinion. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much, it really does mean a lot. Like, subscribe and all the rest, and I'll see you in the next video.